right? Now, if
Mhm.
we assume that we don't have limited resources, at least for the basic needs, and let me go back a step. Religion developed around these tribes where people were saying, look, we have to kill these guys because we don't have enough food. So these guys who believe that this is wrong, or we need a reason to kill these guys, so they're just wrong in general, and we're going to take their food. So religion developed around that, where this group and that group were just fighting for resources. Is that actually how it developed, first of all? That's my theory in my head, but that might be wrong.
If you go back to what I was talking about earlier, Pinker and his 5 pillars of morality, one of them was in-group, loyalty to the group. That is something that religion really enforces. It really promotes loyalty as well as obedience to authority.
Do we see that behavior in animals? Like a wolf pack, does a specific wolf have an attachment to his own pack?
You will see wolves that are like a wolf that's albino is likely to be slaughtered. If it's different, kill it.
And runts. So.
And runs, yes. They're perceived as weak and therefore not helpful.
And just so we clear this, I don't think anybody here believes that wolves have a religion, right? But
not that I've heard.
Let's hope not.
That might be kind of cool. By the way, okay, this is Manuel. By the way, Galatians 2:16. Yet we know that a person is not justified by works of the law, but through faith in Jesus Christ. So we also have believed in Jesus. I'm saying this, hopefully nobody's ever going to take this out of context. So we also have believed in Christ Jesus in order to be justified by faith in Christ and not by works of the law, because by works of the law no one will be justified. So therefore, Bible gives Christians a free pass to ignore laws.
I think that it can be an example of people taking their faith to an extreme. Elsewhere, earlier in the Bible, they talk about the parable of Jesus being presented with a coin and saying, "Is it right that we pay taxes to the Romans?" And Jesus said, whose image is on this coin? And they said, "Caesar's." And he says, "Give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and give unto God what is God's." Basically saying, obey your local laws, but don't forget that you follow a higher law under God. So the extremist position would be that, their faith means that there are laws that they don't have to follow. More often what it means is that their faith means that they have a better interpretation of the law, and that they can write laws to reflect that, such as the reinterpretation of the First Amendment, that we have no freedom from religion, we only have freedom to be religious.
Yeah.
I think that covers point 3 that I wanted to talk about pretty well. We're going to move on to the last point. We've actually been talking for like 3 hours. It's pretty intense. So, being anti-theist is our... I'm going to use the term anti-theist because, in a way, people might think that we represent the extreme of atheism, as if we're actually, if we're talking about it, it's more than most atheists are doing, and I think, at least personally, I'm actively taking a position against religion, because I believe it has a negative impact. So, you can see this either as being anti-theist or being atheist. Being anti-theist is politically incorrect, and this is bad for society. Okay, that wasn't a very well put discussion point that I wrote there. But basically, I'm just wondering, why is there such a stigma against anti-theists and atheists in American society, and also in other societies where, there are some religious people even in Canada, you tell them, I don't believe in God, and I think that religion is wrong, they'll be like, what? How can you say that? That's terrible. Especially we're very nice here, so people take that personally.
Well, when it comes to the US, I believe a lot of that comes from the Cold War propaganda. They labeled communists as godless, and they put in God we trust on the money, and generally just put out propaganda saying that godlessness is bad. That gave us a bad rap.
The Cold War is what got under God into our pledge.
as well as
So-
on our money.
Like going from then on, I mean, like that. I do think that began the if you're not Christian, you're not American idea, or it gave it room to develop further.
I think it is possible to get too extreme with anti-theism. And Christians are very, very fond of bringing it up all the time. Their example would be Joseph Stalin. He took anti-theism to such an extreme that he put people into concentration camps because of it. It's an example of attempting to legislate religion out of our lives. And in a way, we should be minutely grateful that we have this example to look for, because it's a reminder to us that we can't legislate religion out of people's lives. I mean, the history of religion is competing religions wiping each other out. His was the first example of trying to wipe out all religion altogether. Now, it is possible, although not very pleasant, to attempt to legislate religion out of existence. The Roman Empire is an excellent example of that. In the time of Diocletian and Constantine, you had competing religions of Mithras and Christianity and various others, the entire Roman pantheon, competing for control over the highest echelons of Roman government. People were being persecuted because they were Christian, or because they followed Mithras, or because they simply weren't whatever the official religion was at the time. And we saw how bloody and how abhorrent that kind of behavior leads. So it was suggested by Karl Marx and adopted by the communists of the Soviet Union that all religion must be disposed with. We shouldn't tolerate it whatsoever. And it didn't do the job. I mean, yeah, there were several generations raised without any kind of religious indoctrination, but what it did is it drove religion underground. Once the boot of dictatorship was lifted from the Soviet people, you discovered that Eastern Catholicism made a comeback. People were still practicing it in quiet, they just weren't talking about it.
That's intense. Is that, funny enough, isn't that how atheism is kind of today?
It's very much a reverse of what we're doing. I mean, people are coming out of the closet now thanks to the new atheists, and it's really hard to say how much our numbers have swelled because of people newly adopting atheism, or because they were atheists all along and just weren't willing to talk about it. It's really impossible to say. But the new attitude that the new atheists, like myself, I hesitate to call myself a new atheist, but what are you going to do? The attitude that we're adopting in terms of religion is that, yes, we want to eradicate religion. We are anti-theist. We believe that religion needs to go away, but not because we're taking it away from people, simply because we want to educate people to promote critical thinking. A point that was brought up earlier is that not everyone is going to engage in critical thinking, and that's true. The question that I want to ask is, why not? Why can't we promote critical thinking and try to instill those kinds of values into children before they're exposed to religious indoctrination? It's kind of this utopian thinking. We're not necessarily going to see that, but we are seeing that the less desperate people are, the more educated they are, particularly throughout Europe, the less they depend on religion. Europe is in a place where I would love to be right now, where it's actually considered impolite to talk about your religious beliefs in public. Religious belief is supposed to be private. It's what you do in your home, among your family, when you're by yourself. It's not something you're supposed to put in other people's face. The U.S. is the exact opposite of it. If you have religious belief, you're supposed to shout about it. You're not supposed to hide it under a bushel. You're supposed to proclaim it to the masses, to everyone in the world. And it's not subject to challenge.
Sorry to cut you off there, but that's how it's propagated so much in the last couple of decades compared to Europe, right? Like, for some reason, in America, the whole pro-religion thing became very popular, and the rest of the world's kind of, maybe we weren't right about that.
Precisely. What we're seeing in Europe is the kind of movement we would love to see in the U.S., where religion isn't being forced out of people's lives, it's simply being abandoned because no one needs it.
Yeah, there are actually two ways that you can get rid of religion. One is a revolution, the other is evolution. And that's the kind of progress we've seen in Europe. It's evolved to the point that we no longer need it.
And as much as I hate to speak for the new atheist movement, because, well, there is no organization by that name, I still think that the focus of new atheism and atheism in general now is less revolution and more evolution. We want to wither on the vine.
Yeah, I mean,
while we're on the topic of Joseph Stalin, it might be a good idea to mention that it wasn't motivated by atheism in any way, but it was motivated by his belief in communism.
It was his lust for power.
It wasn't extremism in the sense of atheism, but in his communism.
Right. The gulags of the Stalin regime didn't appear until the Stalin regime, even though communism had thoroughly taken over Russia prior under Lenin. The Red October Revolution saw the toppling of the Catholic Church in Russia, and a lot of priests were shot along with the nobility because they were perceived as oppressors of the masses. But after that, people weren't prosecuted or persecuted for their religious beliefs, not until Stalin. So it's not so much that communism was trying to stamp out religion so much as someone took it to its logical extremes in the form of Joseph Stalin.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So there's a highlighted part in yellow, point 4. How is anti-theism not compatible with atheism? And why should skeptics openly challenge claims that have no evidence to support them? I think that kind of started to cover that.
There are people, particularly even among atheists, who insist that anti-theism is detrimental to us, that we're being rude to people, we're not respecting their beliefs, and so forth, and that it's a bad idea to be confrontational, to challenge people on it.
And that's the kind of mind numbness that I find so... I don't have a proper word for it, but something that's like... Can't they see that if they have to tell someone to stop talking about it, maybe it's just because you don't want to admit that you're wrong?
Could be. I think there are a lot of people who are simply uncomfortable with confrontation to begin with. Other people who are, how do we say, they have such a strong live and let live mindset that they don't want to see anyone stepping outside of that. What they don't really address is what do you do with the theists who aren't willing to live by that. I mean, I have no problem with as already been mentioned, I have no problem with anyone praying over their food.
Hey, if it makes somebody happy to say a few words before eating, that's cool.
I utterly respect their right to believe.
The problem is when you're telling your children that they're doing this because God thinks it's the right thing to do. And that's when, like, that child indoctrination and keeping it for the next generations, I find is so morally incorrect.
And it's really hard to police that one. I mean, how do you enforce the idea that children aren't supposed to learn of religion from their parents? We'd love to see something like that come into play, but there's no way to enforce it without completely trampling on people's rights.
Yeah, that offers too much of a slippery slope.
But isn't that what like education's for though? Like there's no slippery slope in education talking about evolution.
Yeah, the reason that there's opposition to evolution is simply because it undermines the whole foundation of religion. If life wasn't actually created by God in perfect form, as originally intended, as stated in Holy Scripture, then what's the point? Apologists are trying to get around this by saying, well, it's just a metaphor. At which point the appropriate response is a metaphor for what?
If you make that anything you want, then that kind of defies the purpose of religion in the first place, I think.
Pretty much.
Well, the problem, as I see it, is that the people that criticize anti-theism don't realize that it's a response to theism. For instance, if we may draw an analogy here, if you were to beat your child and I stopped you, I wouldn't be infringing on your right to beat that child. Hold on.
But